A world that often prioritizes instant gratification, the pursuit of pleasure has become synonymous with living the good life. But can the relentless quest for pleasure really bring lasting happiness? Or does it only lead to fleeting moments of satisfaction, followed by emptiness? For centuries, philosophers have debated this very question, and two schools of thought, Epicureanism and Hedonism, stand out in their exploration of pleasure as the key to a fulfilling life. While both advocate the pursuit of pleasure as central to well-being, they differ significantly in their approach. Epicureanism, founded by the philosopher Epicurus, often gets lumped together with hedonism due to its emphasis on pleasure. However, upon closer examination, Epicurus's version of pleasure offers a more nuanced, long-term perspective on well-being, one that prioritizes tranquility, wisdom, and simplicity over indulgence and excess. On the other hand, traditional hedonism can sometimes focus on immediate, sensory pleasures, often neglecting the long-term effects on mental and emotional health. So, how do these two philosophies truly compare, especially when it comes to achieving lasting well-being? Welcome to the unfolding journey. Here, we explore profound philosophical ideas that can help you lead a more meaningful, balanced, and purposeful life. Whether you're a student of philosophy or someone who's just curious about different approaches to happiness, you're in the right place. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into the fascinating comparison between Epicureanism and hedonism, two schools of thought that focus on pleasure, but in very different ways. We'll explore how these philosophies approach the pursuit of pleasure, long-term well-being, and the role of wisdom in leading a happy life. If you're ready to embark on this journey of philosophical exploration, make sure to stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more thought-provoking content. Epicureanism, pleasure through simplicity and wisdom. Epicureanism, as established by Epicurus in the 4th century BC, posits that pleasure is the ultimate good. However, unlike traditional hedonism, which might view pleasure as something to be sought after at any cost, Epicurus emphasizes the importance of moderation, mental serenity, and long-term happiness. According to Epicurus, the highest form of pleasure is the absence of pain, both physical and mental. This absence of pain, or ataraxia, refers to a state of tranquility and peace of mind where one's desires are no longer dominated by anxiety, fear, or overwhelming longing. Epicurus believed that to attain this state, one should focus on the cultivation of simple pleasures and the pursuit of wisdom. For example, friendships, intellectual pursuits, and living a life free from fear and unnecessary desires were essential components of a good life. He argued that many of the things people chase after, such as wealth, fame, or excessive sensual pleasures, ultimately lead to more pain than pleasure because they require constant maintenance and often lead to dissatisfaction. In contrast to hedonism's emphasis on immediate pleasure, Epicurus's version of pleasure was about the long-term cultivation of a tranquil life. It wasn't about chasing every pleasure in the moment. Rather, it was about cultivating a mindset that prioritized long-term well-being and peace of mind. For Epicurus, the enjoyment of simple, natural pleasures, like enjoying a quiet meal with close friends or contemplating philosophical ideas, was what truly led to happiness. This perspective aligns with modern understandings of well-being, where long-term satisfaction and emotional health are prioritized over short-lived indulgences. Research in psychology and positive well-being often shows that experiences such as deep relationships, meaningful work, and personal growth tend to produce more lasting happiness than temporary sensory pleasures. In this light, Epicureanism can be seen as one of the earliest philosophical traditions to advocate for a balanced, sustainable approach to pleasure. Hedonism, the pursuit of sensory pleasures. Hedonism, in its traditional form, also centers around the pursuit of pleasure as the ultimate good. However, unlike Epicureanism, which focuses on mental tranquility and the management of desires, hedonism is often associated with the pursuit of immediate sensory pleasures, such as food, drink, and physical pleasure. Philosophical hedonists, like Aristippus of Cyrene, argued that pleasure is the highest good and should be sought as the most direct means of achieving happiness. Traditional hedonism places less emphasis on the long-term consequences of pleasure-seeking and often prioritizes the immediate gratification of desires. Hedonists argue that pleasure is inherently good, and since human beings are naturally inclined toward pleasure and away from pain, one should seek to maximize pleasure whenever possible. For some hedonists, this means indulging in physical pleasures or satisfying desires without considering the potential consequences of these actions in the future. The classical hedonistic perspective often aligns with modern consumer culture, where instant gratification is frequently celebrated. In a society that rewards the pursuit of immediate pleasures, whether through material possessions, entertainment, or consumption, it's easy to see how hedonism's approach to pleasure can seem appealing. Yet, while short-term pleasures may offer a sense of satisfaction, they often fail to provide lasting happiness or contribute to long-term well-being. One of the key criticisms of hedonism is that, when taken to extremes, it can lead to addiction, excess, and burnout. The constant pursuit of sensory pleasures may initially bring happiness, but over time, it can lead to a diminishing return, where the pleasures become less satisfying and the pursuit of them becomes all-consuming. This is where hedonism and Epicureanism diverge. Epicureanism teaches that the pursuit of wisdom and moderation will lead to a more lasting and sustainable form of happiness, while hedonism's emphasis on indulgence can lead to fleeting pleasure and, ultimately, dissatisfaction. The role of pain and desire in both philosophies. Epicurus's view of pleasure is deeply intertwined with his understanding of pain and desire. For him, pleasure is the absence of pain. This means that the pursuit of pleasure is not about indulgence, but rather about the elimination of unnecessary desires and the removal of fear, especially the fear of death or the fear of the gods. Epicurus argued that unrealistic desires often lead to pain, and that happiness is found when we remove these desires and learn to enjoy life's simpler pleasures. This focus on reducing unnecessary desires contrasts with hedonism's approach, where the aim is often to increase pleasure without considering the impact of unbridled indulgence on long-term well-being. While Epicureanism seeks to minimize pain and moderate desires, traditional hedonism typically focuses on maximizing pleasure without as much concern for the long-term consequences of indulgence. As a result, hedonism can sometimes lead to addiction or dissatisfaction when short-term pleasures fail to provide lasting fulfillment. Epicurus was also keenly aware of the dangers of excessive materialism and the pursuit of physical pleasure for its own sake. He believed that by focusing on intellectual and emotional fulfillment, like enjoying philosophical conversations, good company, and quiet contemplation, people could find true satisfaction without the need for constant sensory stimulation. This is one of the key differences between Epicureanism and hedonism. Epicureanism seeks to limit desires and seeks inner tranquility, while hedonism often amplifies the pursuit of immediate gratification. Long-term well-being, Epicureanism's sustainable approach. When it comes to long-term well-being, Epicureanism offers a more sustainable and holistic approach than traditional hedonism. Epicurus emphasized that long-term happiness comes from cultivating wisdom, virtue, and self-control, qualities that are necessary for sustaining a peaceful, pleasurable life. He taught that a life free from anxiety and unnecessary desires is the key to lasting pleasure. In contrast, hedonism's focus on momentary pleasures often leads to emotional and physical burnout over time. Research in modern psychology supports Epicurus's view on happiness. Studies consistently show that people who focus on building deep relationships, engaging in meaningful activities, and cultivating emotional resilience tend to experience greater long-term well-being than those who prioritize instant gratification. Epicurus's focus on moderation and mental serenity resonates with contemporary ideas about sustainable happiness, which emphasize well-being derived from emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and self-reflection. Epicureanism's focus on long-term pleasure through wisdom stands in stark contrast to hedonism's emphasis on short-term pleasure. While both philosophies acknowledge the importance of pleasure in human life, Epicurus advocates for a kind of pleasure that leads to contentment and peace, a pleasure that is rooted in intellectual and emotional fulfillment rather than in material indulgence. In conclusion, while both Epicureanism and hedonism emphasize pleasure as central to human well-being, the ways in which they approach this pursuit are fundamentally different. Epicureanism focuses on achieving long-term well-being by cultivating wisdom, tranquility, and moderation. It teaches that pleasure is best achieved by eliminating unnecessary desires and fears, embracing simple joys, and prioritizing intellectual and emotional fulfillment. In contrast, traditional hedonism often emphasizes the immediate satisfaction of sensory pleasures, sometimes without considering the long-term consequences. As we move forward in the modern world, with its emphasis on instant gratification and materialism, Epicurus's version of pleasure may provide a much-needed antidote. The lessons of simplicity, mindfulness, and emotional resilience can guide us toward a more sustainable and fulfilling life in the years to come. Thank you for joining us on this philosophical journey. If you enjoyed exploring the differences between Epicureanism and hedonism and how they relate to long-term well-being, please subscribe to The Unfolding Journey for more in-depth philosophical discussions. Remember to hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep unfolding.